Hello, and welcome to the Modern Romantic Podcast, where we celebrate and inspire romanticism through passionate people doing incredible things. Hi, I'm a big old nerd. I'm Trey, and I'm joined by someone who has an extreme fondness and delicious delight for many things, including, but not limited to, Lord of the Rings and many things about English culture. Emily. Hi, Emily.
If that makes me a nerd too, I'm totally okay with that.
Okay, I'm joined by another big old nerd,
Big
Emily.
ol' nerd, yeah, it's so refined.
So refined. Uh, Hi, Emily. How are you?
I'm great. How are you? I see you have a new wall behind you.
I do. This is one of the many reasons I'm a big old nerd. But yeah, I finally was able to get my collection of just memorabilia, mostly about Pokemon stuff, but just stuff that really fuels me from, I guess, what I would say, an artistic standpoint. And it's really representative of my 30 plus years of collecting stuff. I have some things on this wall that are from my childhood up through some stuff that I collected last year, and I'm very now happy to display this all with pride and to say a big ol' nerd.
Hooray, big ol' nerd. It looks shoppable. I'm gonna interrupt myself. It just occurred to me that this looks shoppable.
Thank you. That is an extreme compliment. No, you cannot stop here. Do not ask. Stop.
It's it's, um, it's like you might have a slight background in merchandising.
That's so funny you say that. No one's ever said that to me in my 5 plus years of retail business. Uh,
What an
but
odd thing to say to someone.
what a what an odd thing to say. But seriously, thank you. And I'm very happy that it's up. Fun fact, these bookcases were once completely black, and I have painted them all white. So fun fact. The other thing I want to talk about, I want to tell you about the news about my recent audition that I had.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I did an audition. I've been on a journey of getting back out in the theater and doing things. And I want to tell you that I did something that scared me this week. I went to the callbacks and got the notice back that I didn't get cast in the show, like at all.
Okay.
And I did something scary and actually reached back out to the theater and I asked for feedback from the director and said, I don't care if it's just something generic that's kind of applied to everybody. I don't care if it's, about me specifically, but can I ask for some feedback?
Mhm.
And
Wow.
the director reached back out with an email that started off saying, "I hate giving feedback, but if I can share anything, here's what I'd like to share." Um, and what he said was, my audition was actually really strong. That I acted well, I sang really well. The biggest thing about it was my dancing probably wasn't up to par, but I'm also not a trained dancer, so that's not a surprise.
Yeah.
Um, and he said you can come across a little bit very classical. So for the vibe of
Okay.
the show, we're going for something that's a little bit more like niche and very campy. So it didn't fit the vibe of the show, but from an overall standpoint, your audition was strong.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's brave of you, first of all,
Thank you.
and bold, and go you. Yeah.
Thank you.
And
So
do you feel good about that feedback?
I do. I was left feeling like my audition was, cruddy, and then come to find out, no, it was actually really strong. It didn't fit the vibe of the show. So it doesn't mean that I am a bad artist. It just means
No,
this wasn't the right show for me.
just wasn't a good fit.
Yeah.
Yep.
So really good experience. And so an encouragement from our past guests to say, go out and do something that you're scared of.
And you did.
Yeah. Here to tell
Right.
us, and our guest tonight, I'm sure are going to tell us all about the things that they've been scared to do and how they've overcome that. I'm really excited to get to talk to them more. So, Emily, would you do us the honor of introducing our guests?
First, I have a joke.
Oh, okay.
What do you get when you put three dog loving photographers in one podcast?
Um, I think what you mean to say is for dog loving.
I'm sorry, four dog
Oh,
loving photographers in one pod.
I don't know. What do you get?
a howling good time. It's cheesy and it fits. So, we have with us here tonight a photography duo, Maggie Hall and Nile Hawver. Sorry. They are, it's a photography duo, but they also do photography separately. And they have brought with them their beloved dog, Odin, who is really the star of our show tonight.
No?
No?
Odin
All right.
is- That's okay. We love you, Odin. Thank you for being here.
And thank you, Nile, and thank you, Maggie, for also being here with us on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Like,
so great of you to be here.
yeah.
So do you do photography? Let me get my wrap my head around it. Do you do photography together or is it all separate?
Yes.
Yeah, yes,
Yes.
both.
Both.
Both. Okay. That's
Mhm.
yeah. So you have like I was looking at your websites and um you obviously photograph different things. Maggie has more of a well maybe you should describe it. Tell us
I
like
used
your photography. Sorry.
Sure, yeah. I used to focus a lot on interiors and on product. And recently, the past few years, I've really narrowed my focus down to theater and production photography.
And it's really, really good. I was kind of blown away by some of the product photography you've done and interiors too. Like you light things very well, and um, I want to be in those spaces.
Hmm.
So yeah, and then Niall, your type of photography is more headshots and
Yeah, so I started with actor headshots and then also do a lot of production photography. That's the bulk of what I do as well. And so Maggie and I will shoot together on a lot of the bigger theaters that we work for. We'll kind of shoot, as a pair, covering shows or events.
you're in Boston, is that right?
We live in Providence,
Oh,
uh,
Providence. Okay.
and we're less than a month out from relocating to Brooklyn.
Oh
Oh,
wow,
wow.
Yeah,
Congratulations on the move.
thanks.
Thanks.
that's a lot
Things
going
that's
on.
Yeah, things that scare you. So
Yeah.
Right.
Can I ask what inspired the move to Brooklyn?
a lot.
A lot.
Yeah, I've always wanted to live in New York, and there were a lot of logical reasons why it sort of lined up to make sense now.
Yeah, I think just there's just so many more opportunities for work, for connections, especially in the performing arts and theater. And we also have a 4-year-old son who will be starting kindergarten down there in the fall. So,
Oh yeah,
Yay. That's so
yeah.
exciting.
big changes for everybody.
Yeah.
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 Well, we work mostly in Boston though, and then we have some clients in Western Mass or Maine, and so we'll hopefully continue to service those areas just based out of Brooklyn instead of Providence, and just spend a lot more time on Amtrak, which I'm fine with.
So, how did you both get into photography?
Mhm. Oh,
I have no formal training in it at all. I was also not. I found it late, and it wasn't ever anything that I felt like was a form of expression necessarily. Like I think I liked. I found it through theater, I suppose, and I liked feeling useful in the um, like capturing rehearsals and performances of shows that I was in when I wasn't on stage. And I just quickly felt like it was something that I could really use to contribute to the theater that was being made that when I like wasn't on stage. And then headshots, I don't know. I think I just started again, I kind of started doing it. And I learned by trial and error and I'm still learning. Um, and for me, I think it was a natural outgrowth of a history of like growing up making things with my hands and then being really interested in technology and computers and that side of things. And then obviously like so much of what I do as a portrait photographer, and then also capturing theaters related to storytelling, which I think is coming from my background as an actor. All of my training is in classical acting, and yeah, I got lucky. I think photography was a really natural fit for a lot of like preloaded interests and strengths, and I'm just grateful that people find it useful and that I get paid to do it. It's kind of crazy.
What about you, Maggie?
I also came to it pretty late in life. I think I think at this point I've been working professionally for just 10 years now. I think
Hmm.
I started around 2015. Um, and especially on the theater side of things, it just sort of fell into it. Nile was doing a play here in Providence, and they needed someone to take rehearsal photos, and so I just started doing it, and then kept working at it, kept practicing, and found it was something that I really loved.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
But you have training. You went to New England School of Photography.
Oh yeah, I did go to school for it too. That's
Yeah.
fine. But
Yeah.
also did that late in life. So.
Yeah, and you studied classical music
Yeah.
and music history.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
okay.
before that. So I've had many lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. Relatable.
Yeah.
I've also been eyeing the different guitar or different stringed instruments behind you. So I noticed the guitar, the mandolin. There was a dulcimer-like thing off to the side that we talked about
Mhm.
earlier. Who do they belong to, and can you play them?
So the two guitars are, well, they're ours. We're married. We share all of our things. And I'm grateful to be married to a string player
Yeah.
because most guitarists complain about their partners not allowing them to buy expensive guitars, but
Oh
an
yeah.
expensive guitar is a very, very cheap violin. So
It's very true.
it's pretty. We had some nice experiences shopping for these. I don't have any other instruments. These are my favorite things. But Maggie plays the violin and the viola, and so this weird little guy is it's a travel violin.
Yeah,
A
this was actually given to me by our friend who introduced us.
Mhm.
It's a travel violin called a cricket, by a company called the Magic Fluke, and they basically just take a violin, cut the sides off, and then put a plastic back to it. So you could just throw it in a bag and go.
Yeah, it doesn't have a case. It's made to be played in the rain or whatever, and there's an input on the side so you can plug in a pickup. Um, and yeah, so Maggie has played this in a couple of shows, and I haven't played this in a show. I'm terrible at the violin, but I do. And then the other ones are mine. I have this guitar on the left is a one that I bought 20 years ago now, which is crazy. And then this one was newer from 7 years ago, maybe. And then we got the mandolin in Nashville when we went to visit. But I've played them all in various performances, and I used to be in bands and things. And a lot of my work as an actor is like musicals, like Once, um, or Million Dollar Quartet, like these actor musician shows.
Which we did once together last year.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's such a great show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So you also brought up music history, and that brings up my background in like classical singing and that sort of thing. So Maggie,
Oh, cool.
I am really interested. What is a composer that you nerd out about?
I nerded out a lot about Shostakovich in my
Yes,
20s. But I really couldn't narrow it down.
that is totally fair. I think mine would be Bellini, believe it or not.
When we met, she made fun of me for my favorite piece being Dvorak 9.
What?
Kind of did. You made me feel pretty connected about it.
The truth comes out.
Yeah.
That's a great piece.
Yeah.
So you have shared interest in the theater. You have shared interest when it comes to photography and art. Um, I'm I'm curious what does your process look like when it comes to capturing the right shot? How do you know when it's the right shot?
That is quite a
Uh,
question,
it's a
Trey.
question.
Good
Well, it's different for
question.
headshots than theater for me.
Yeah.
The headshot one, I mean, I think portrait photography is really interesting in that, like, I think every person photographing another human being has an agenda, like not consciously necessarily. Even and actor headshots have, I think, they consciously have an agenda because they're a tool. So when I'm doing an actor headshot, I think that like the closest thing I can liken it to is from Star Wars, like episode 4, when he's got the targeting computer, and it's sort of like in my head, I'm like looking for that like lock on moment of like the person's eyes are in focus and that they're present, and there's like the head is in a place where I want it to be, and like the shape is right, and it just looks like what I think an actor headshot should look like. And unlike other forms of photography and even portraiture, there really is a specific purpose and a specific, I think, um, like message or because they're being used as a tool to book work as an actor, you have to look for this really kind of all-encompassing moment of authenticity and openness, but then also be like locked in. And there's a lot that but I don't know how to describe it other than like I know it when I see it, and it takes some time to figure it out. What about performance though for you?
Um, I think that's so hard to describe. I think a lot of it comes from just looking at the lighting and the scenic design for the show, and seeing how the characters fit in that world, and then the communication between the characters that's happening, any type of interaction that they're having with the audience, or any type of like internal communication is sort of what I'm looking for. A lot of it is kind of anticipating what's going to happen next too. So without having seen a show, you after like a couple of scenes, or you can kind of get an idea of where people are going to be entering in, where the action is going to be happening, and then stationing yourself in a place to be there.
I think we're also looking for the mission of the shot. Like sometimes for theater, there's a shot that's going to like, it's the one that they're going to put on the front of
Yeah.
the program. Like even though they didn't specifically ask for it, you're like, that's the marketing one. Or there's the one that's like, the lead actor has to be showcased here.
Mhm.
This is about the ensemble. This is about the vibe or the energy of the show. And every show is different too. And
Yeah.
like what's the important element? If it's two people sitting around talking, how are you going to find that moment of like connection between the two of them? And like from a market, our shows are usually used for, our shots are usually used for marketing. So how do you think about like, what does the marketing team want? And what will help them sell this tickets to this show? And hopefully we can make it also obviously beautiful, whatever that means. And look, epic and cool and theatrical and all these other things. But I do think there is also that sense of, how do we serve the.
And that's all happening like in my head too when I'm taking pictures. It's
Yeah.
like, what am I trying to get, and how to get there. So
That's a lot to balance.
It is like it's kind of like it's different even than like shooting a wedding, because you have, while everything's moving and changing and the event is happening in front of you, like you said, you're anticipating where actors are going to be. If you haven't seen it before, do you go in and see it before, so that, or like a rehearsal, so that you kind of know what to expect?
kind of rarely. If we do rehearsals, it's usually done in a rehearsal room, not on the actual
Okay.
stage.
It depends on the show. I mean, sometimes when we're shooting like higher profile projects where there's more like at stake, and it's more important that we like really get it right because we have less of an opportunity to do it again. Or if it's something where there might be a technical element that we're not sure is going to. Sometimes there are problems with the cameras and like certain lighting situations too, so we have to be ready for that. But most of the time, it isn't like financially possible for us to see the show before we shoot it. It would just be too much time. And
That makes
if we could, I would
Yeah.
always like that. Once in a while, we get the opportunity to photograph a show more than once, which is always nice to kind of get to go back and grab things that we might have missed or see it
Right.
from a literally different perspective.
Mhm. Are
Yeah.
you in there then with like a big lens, or because I think about like when I see, like when they're filming, like when they're filming video during a concert, let's say, and you'll see like person with a camera like right up on stage with the band and stuff, and it's like in their face and it's blocking the audience. So I'm wondering, you probably don't do it that way.
We would if we could.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it'd be
right?
great.
Yeah. And there's rules, and every show is different. I mean, sometimes you're in the round and you have to be in their faces, and that's
Mhm.
fine, but that presents its own challenges. Or sometimes you're
Sometimes you're
way.
shooting with a live audience and you
Mhm.
just have to be crawling around on your hands and knees, like trying not to get into people's field of vision.
Yeah,
So,
or way in the back, or but yeah, I mean, ideally you're front row center, if not on
yeah.
stage. But it's hard. We
Okay.
also we're often photographing a dress rehearsal, and as an actor, I think if you're really in it and you're really focusing on rehearsing your performance, it can be challenging to have a photographer in your face and snapping away and all these things. So we try to balance out like our need to get great shots with oftentimes like this is a chance for the performers to be rehearsing, and so we don't want to interrupt that.
I love the perspective that you have when it comes to that. I will admit like my knowledge of photography or my considerations aren't as maybe in depth as you've described. So I love that you're giving an insight to think about it as photography as a tool for something. We may not always think about it in that way. Sometimes we maybe just take it for art, but there seems to be a much larger purpose for that in the context of giving insight, almost like a trailer for a movie or giving a trailer for
Mhm.
something else. You're giving an insight into something, so you want to like monopolize that and go, ooh, this is a moment people are going to want to see.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I wonder what the numbers and actual metrics are, but I think a great production photo could probably sell some number of tickets. I mean, if someone sees it and they go, "That looks so cool," um, or that the people look, I don't know, something about it that is really compelling. It adds just to anything, marketing or other reviews, whatever other influencing factors that they can have to get people in seats.
Honestly, I was really drawn, kind of on that topic. I was really drawn to one that I believe I saw this on Nile's website, and it was one where there was a piece of fabric behind the actor, almost in the shape of wings. And from the way it was staged, it made me think it was Tony Kushner's Angels in America, just from the way it was staged. But it was done without any other staging that I could see, save for some lights behind the actors themselves. And it was such a compelling thing, the way that it was shot with the actor lying on the ground, almost slightly cocked at an angle, with this very intense person, kind of ethereal, looking down on him. And I found myself really engaged by that shot, and I thought it was just a very unique take. And when you were describing that, that's the image that kind of came up.
Yeah, thanks. That was Angels in America at Central Square Theater in Cambridge, Mass, and it was a fantastic production. And that's the other part of it, right? Is like I I don't I consider what we do as production photographers in particular, it's like almost to me art adjacent because I didn't make that costume. I didn't stand on stage and design that thing. I didn't direct that show. Like we're just interpreting, like there's an interpretive element to it, but and I guess I'm deciding like where am I standing, if I have that freedom, what's my frame, what pieces of the story are we trying to tell here. And I think like there is some art in that, but I'm okay with that. Like I think I really enjoy almost being like the last piece in that puzzle of like, okay, you guys made this thing, now let me use my you know experience and eye and editorial whatever to really make it look the way that it's, and that's one of the highest compliments that we've ever gotten, is when a director will tell us, like, you made the show look like how I envisioned it in my head. Like you brought it out to the, on in 2-dimensional, the way that I see it in 3.
Yeah, you definitely capture the magic of what happens on stage and the essence of the shows themselves. I see that in each one. Like, it honestly makes me want to see every last one of these.
Yeah, thank you.
And that's, I think, the best part of what we do, is that we do get to see all of this great art that's being made in our community, and yeah, it feels like the least we can do is just give back to the community that produces this.
Yeah.
Well, I think you accomplished that for sure. Also, like, for somebody who maybe doesn't understand what happens inside of a theater, like on the stage, we've seen high school productions, or our only experience maybe has been, very limited, what we grew up with, and haven't gone to see any real professional theater. The idea that this is the look inside of what happens, you're capturing it in a way that would make someone want to see it for themselves. And I think that also is important, not just because it sells more tickets, but because it translates the art.
Yeah, that makes sense. And
Yeah.
we take it for granted. I mean, I've been in a theater for like 30 years, well, except for COVID, like pretty much nonstop in some way. So I do forget like how much of a privilege, and it's like, I think that like marine biologists have the coolest job, because they just get to hang out with fish and stuff all day and be underwater, and like, but for them it's probably just, oh, this is what I do all the time, and I'm so sick of these dumb corals or something. So it is crazy that this is what we get to do. And like Maggie said, it is mostly, obviously it's our job and we do get money for it, and that's great, but then also the way that we feel like we can contribute to and elevate the work of our community and the people that we collaborate with in other ways too.
Yeah. Well, if we've learned nothing on this show, it's that storytelling creates community, and community is important to every area. And that makes your work more important than probably most people realize.
Yeah, I suppose.
I'm curious if you have photographed each other. I know this is a random question, but have you photographed each other?
So
Yeah.
I'm the worst at having my picture taken, like the absolute worst. So
I'm also pretty bad at it.
Yeah,
we're both
pretty
lousy
bad
subjects. So we've tried.
You tried.
It doesn't always go well.
It doesn't always go well. No.
I think there's a comfort. I've photographed people, like friends and even my parents, people I know, and I think that there's a zone of comfort that is beneficial. And then once you get too far into like intimacy, whether it's a parent or spouse or whatever, I think it can actually get more difficult than photographing a total stranger, because I don't know, there's like an added level of self-consciousness and expectation or something that comes out around it, as opposed to like, if you're photographing your 5th best friend or someone you've been in a show with, they're familiar, but they're not, I don't know, as intimate as someone you see every single day. And
Right.
So yeah, it's really tough. Yeah.
There's a level of trust there too. I mean, I would think,
Well,
I think about
maybe,
like Josh photographing me, I would be like, I don't know.
yeah. Well, because maybe you're like, the person so well that like any inauthenticity or discomfort is like amplified, because you can see it so clearly. Like if I've never met you, I can sort of pick up on it, but I may not be able to read like 100% what is you are like, or how relaxed you are or something. And with someone that, again, I've known for forever, that as soon as the camera comes up, I'm like, you're not being this is not who I know you are.
Right. You can tell automatically how totally uncomfortable I am.
Yeah.
in that position. So I can't hide it. Like,
Right.
And truly, I thought the answer was going to be because you're both photographers, and so you're like looking at how the other person is taking the shot and kind of like editorializing what they're doing at the same time.
Sometimes.
We actually have very few pictures of the two of us together, which is
Yeah, the effort it took to get that one for you guys. Like, it was good that we needed it anyway, but we were like, oh my god, we have to go to the studio. I think we had my step brother-in-law do it because we were like trading headshots for him, and so we just set up a tripod and said, just press this and we'll go over there.
Well, it turned out really well for the both of you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We would not have known.
Yeah.
You did great.
Yeah.
Good. Thanks.
That's like, but it's similar. It's like Trey and I with shots for our website for the podcast. We're like, do you have anything recent? No, and I don't wanna.
Yeah. It's hard. I think we live in such a saturated environment with imagery, and I recently learned about Jevons paradox, which it applies to energy consumption, and they talk about like how as energy production becomes more efficient, the demand rises to match the production. So like, no matter how good we get at making, it's, you can just anecdotally kind of feel that, right? That like we've gotten better at making energy and making more efficient machines, but then we just use more and more of it. So I think with imagery right now, it's an interesting time to be a photographer because photography is now ubiquitous in that everyone has a camera in their pocket, and there's now AI, but then also like the demand for constant images has grown to match that like ability to produce them. So we're just constantly making things.
I thought about that as well. I didn't know there was a name for it, but you're right. I look at some of the photographers I follow, and it is like, oh, they haven't come out with anything new in a couple weeks. Wow, that's bummer. And I'm sitting here going, I haven't either. What am I thinking? Yeah, that's a lot of pressure to put on somebody to output so much when, we need things to create those images in the way we would. Like some of the composite artists that'll spend 40 hours on an image, and we don't think about that. It's just show me the image, put it in front of my eyeballs right now.
Right.
And we're also finite beings. So like we have lifetimes, and we probably won't photograph things for our entire lifetimes. So we have a finite amount of time to be creating this art. Yeah, I think about that sort of thing a lot.
Well,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say in that same way, like getting stuck making something that, like that's the paradox or whatever of any artist who finds this like joy in making something and discovering it and creating it for the first time and like learning all about this thing. And then suddenly, especially when it becomes commercial, you're then expected to continue to deliver the same product. And where do you find that opportunity to, it's that classic, like everyone hates the band's second album because it doesn't sound like their first one. But if it sounded too much like their first one, they would accuse them of, just making their first album again. But some people would really like that. So I think how do you, I think as artists, like you're someone who is driven by novelty and curiosity and experimentation. But then when you find something that people want to pay for, or they expect that result, then you're kind of trapped into delivering the same thing as a machine again and again.
Yeah, same with like movie sequels and season 2 of any show, and especially once they change writers a little bit.
Yeah.
It makes me think of, I'm going to call out Hosier for a second. I really loved I would say his first 2 albums, but his most recent one is one that he got a little bit more experimentation with and a little bit more pop. And I'm finding it a little bit more like, okay, you made choices with this. I don't agree with all of them, but it's interesting. so it's not always a bad thing to experiment, but sometimes it's less about the audience and more about the artist that needs the opportunity and the capacity to experiment.
Hmm.
Um, do you So in that vein, do you feel like you get the opportunity to experiment with your photography, or do you feel like you are kind of locked into a particular framework or mind framework?
You do.
What? Did I get to experiment?
Yeah. With headshots.
Well,
You're always changing.
yeah, I'm always like looking for like the perfect light. I'm kind of in this like quest to find like this combination of esoteric tools that are going to like add up to a really consistently beautiful artificial light. So I'm always kind of swapping things around and trying stuff, but ultimately I do have to deliver to the client, especially one-on-one, as it's a kind of a commissioned piece in a way that I have to deliver something that looks like what's on my website. So I couldn't like way go out of left field and do something completely different. But once in a while, when I get to do like a portrait session, that's a little bit more, oftentimes opera singers, when I get photograph them, that they might be interested in something that's not such a, traditional headshot, especially for like website or marketing materials. So we'll get a chance to play around in different environments or try, more dramatic clothing or something that's just a little bit more out of the box than what's expected in traditional actor headshot. And then with theater though, like you said that I think there's like when you go back to the same physical locations repeatedly, you might run into some repetition, but then every show you can get some shows that are fresh.
Yeah.
So opera headshots are a little more, or can be a little more exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that is, Trey?
Truthfully, I don't know. I'll be honest. I've seen a lot of opera singers' headshots, and some of them are frankly just boring. So, it's a very traditional thing. People are beholden to such a classical expectation, and they're trying to shake it off. So maybe it's playing with expectations of what opera singers are actually like. I'm curious your thoughts, Nile, Maggie.
I mean, opera is just so big. It's so larger than life. It's so distinctly classical. I don't think there is a ton of room for evolution in that type of portraiture, is there?
Well, it depends on what your goal is as an artist.
Sure.
Like I'm seeing most portraiture that I do is seen through the lens of marketing. So if you're coming to me as an opera singer and you're saying like, I want this to look like, the most traditional version of this. This is what's required of me. I'm trying to, book roles that are exactly what I look like and exactly fit my voice and not pushing any boundaries. And that's fine. Like I'm not saying it's like good or bad, but then we're going to get something that reflects that desire, in you as a product. And then if you're coming to me and saying like, I want to break the mold, I want to show that I can be different and do something that's non-traditional or whatever, then we'll try to make an image that showcases that that goal and that idea.
Fascinating.
Um,
Oh, go ahead, Trey.
Yeah, I love that the conversation. What I'm hearing is just very consultative. It's not just you listen, you take picture, and that's it. It's really, really trying to craft an experience and what that final image is going to be like. So I love the considerations that you're bringing to the table.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I think that like one of my insecurities in that area is that I feel like I've never really had or have cultivated a vision of my own or like a sense of like there are photographers who the truly iconic ones that you can see have had like this thing that they need to express, or directors who you can see their style and immediately know this is like them, and they're using visual storytelling tools to like bring their soul to life. And I'm okay with that. with not having that as part of like my, I don't know, repertoire, but I think that the plus side of it is what you said. Like I can approach this work as much more of a service person as a consultant. That's a good word for it. Is like, you know, I have this set of skills and a viewpoint and my knowledge of, you know, existence and pop culture and regular culture and humanity and all this other stuff. And like, how can we work together to create something that is, um, you know, going to be a tool for you. And like, I guess there is, like I said, there's no escaping whatever viewpoint or agency that I'm uh, overlaying onto that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that my work is so distinct in the way that some other people's are. And again, I'm okay with it. It's not like I'm sad about it, but I'm aware of that, that element going on.
I would like to know from each of you, do you photograph anything just for you? Like, do you ever just go out in nature, or, you know, is there anything that you are like, this isn't work, this is for you? Or does that become a different art form entirely then? Because photography is work.
No,
No?
not really.
I don't remember. No, I mean, we take a lot of pictures of our family, of our kids.
Okay.
Yeah, but you're right. It is work. I mean, it becomes like even in the family stuff when we're at a party or a wedding or somebody's things. Like I don't really want to be. I'll do it if I'm asked and I'm happy to contribute. But a lot of the times it's very freeing. Like when we went on our honeymoon, we went to Europe. We went to Rome and a few other spots in Europe, and I actually bought like a pocket, you know, point and shoot Fujifilm camera because I knew that if I brought a DSLR, then I would also have to bring one lens, and then I would say, let's bring another one, and then eventually I'd be lugging a whole suitcase around. And I was like, you know what, I'm just going to enjoy. Like, I want to bring a camera and feel like it's a bit more elevated than just my phone, but otherwise it is going to feel like work. And then there's like the processing of the images too. So yeah, if I bring my camera over to shoot my nephew's first birthday party, it's it's awesome in the moment, and then I go home and I'm like, I gotta edit all these and deliver them, and there's some expectations around it. So no, we're also insanely busy. It's really challenging. Like we are blessed with just endless work and are managing an enormous operation and a family. So the time for photography that feels like a hobby is really, really, really small.
So
That
the
sounds
opportunities,
reasonable. Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
like it kind of becomes like the opera singer. People know that they can sing. They go out to a party. Oh, will you sing something for us?
Yeah.
No, I want to break. I want to be silent for the next hour.
Yeah, and also will you deliver the quality? Like, if you're, I can imagine you wouldn't want to be at karaoke and not having warmed up and not having singing what you're comfortable with, and like I don't know, I want to produce work, even if it isn't real work. I still want to produce something that I'm proud of and that reflects.
Manage the lighting.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Staging and all that.
That said, I will throw down at I want to dance with somebody. So that
Nice.
gauntlet is thrown on that.
And Baby Got Back.
And
We
Baby
know
Got
this.
Back.
Yeah, and we have shepherded groups of people into the correct light when they give us their phone. Can you take our picture? And we go like, okay, switch sides with us.
That is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I've done the same thing.
Yeah.
You're like, no, please don't stand here in the sun like this. Let's go over here in the shade.
I'm curious, are there any photographers that you currently follow that you would be over the moon if they wanted to sit down and talk shop with you?
I mean, I love Joan Marcus. I think she's
Okay.
fantastic. I also love that she's another woman in the theater photography world, because I haven't really come across that many.
There's Julieta too, right?
Oh yeah, Julieta Cervantes, who we actually got to work with last year, and then we went on a little walk with her this summer, which was nice.
Yeah, and all these folks are in New York.
Yeah,
which we really want to. That's part of why we're moving, is we want to
Yeah.
like hopefully meet them and become part of a community of people who do what we do. I mean, for me, I think it falls into two categories. Like, there's some that I want to meet who are like, I want to know how your business works. I want to know like the nuts and bolts of like how do you make it work in New York City with
Mhm.
like the very like, you know, from a super practical standpoint, like I'm going to ideally set up meetings with these folks and say like, how can we become, part of your tribe and community and not undercut you or not come in to this new market and be like, we want to be cooperative
Yeah.
members of that. And then I think folks I admire, um, I mean, Emilio Madrid is another production photographer who I think is fantastic. And um, our friend Mark Franklin, I mean, we know him and I still really think his work is the best. And um, there's a few, there's a guy named Art Streiber or Strieber, I don't know, he's a LA based, he does a lot of like key art photography for movie posters and advertisements. And I really love, I've never met him, of course, but he does such an amazing service in the way that he breaks down his setups for Instagram. He only posts, about once a month, but whenever he does this like unbelievable, like sort of diagrams and talks through his process and how he lit the thing and like what he did and why he did it. And it's just such a gift that this person who I'm sure he does well and is very established in his career and there's no reason for him to share what he's doing in that way. And, it's not like he's getting paid for it or anything. And I just am so grateful that he does that. So I really respect where he's coming from in sharing his process and that work. There's a few others. I mean, I can't, if I was to go through my Instagram feed, I'm sure I would find
Right.
people that I'm like, that I follow people who I just go like, make a picture that I say, how did they do that?
Mhm.
And there's quite a few. They just have some amazing lighting or, um, how do they get people to look so natural? I think also like I take a lot of time with my sessions, my portrait sessions that I often need 30 minutes to 5 hours, averaging maybe 2 hours. And like when I see that someone has come in and like taken a photo of, you know, um, Richard Branson or some famous person, Obama or something, and they just look relaxed and amazing, and they did it in what I imagine was probably 10 minutes.
Mm.
Uh, to me, I think that's so cool that however they just kind of make that decision and they don't need all that time is something that I want to strive for too.
Yeah, I don't know how anyone can make someone, I guess maybe if the person's used to being photographed, but I'm used to photographing people who are almost never photographed. So it usually takes a good half hour just for them to relax enough to sit there and not look nervous. So I
Yeah.
can't imagine photographing somebody and only taking 10 minutes and they look relaxed and natural and how you'd want them to, or how they should, or how they would like themselves to look. So
Mm.
that sounds like quite an incredible skill, if that's possible. But
It
you're
almost,
right.
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
What were you gonna say, Trey?
It sounds like you're almost trying to balance, maintaining that balance between knowing someone like relatively intimately and then not knowing them at all, and finding that balance between where you can get somebody relaxed and get those shots, but also not cross a boundary into too much territory and thereby almost pulling up, I don't know, some level of unspoken insecurity, I think is the best way I
Hmm.
could maybe describe it.
Yeah. And we're also looking at like, I mean, ultimately, I'm sure there are people who maybe would be okay with this, but ultimately, yes, like we're looking at like, how do we make this person appear, for lack of a better word, beautiful? Like you're trying to be flattering with the light, trying to like, I don't know. I mean, sometimes I guess, yeah, like I think about this, Emilio Madrid just did the key art for Good Night and Good Luck with George Clooney on Broadway. And like, it's hard to make George Clooney look unattractive, but in the picture, it's like this black and white thing. And he looks really kind of menacing. And, um, but I think in that case, like he must have had some pretty clear art direction, the goal in mind of that. So yeah, like you're not only trying to, it's these many elements that you're balancing of this person. Oftentimes too, for me, if I'm shooting something like that, where it's a poster for a theater or you're trying to figure out like, how do we make these people look good? Again, that's subjective, but there's something there. And then yeah, like what someone else's idea of what looks good, of what they think is could be wildly different from what I think
Hmm.
or from what a marketing director thinks. And there is sometimes that element of like personality or power in the room too, where you have to, who's in charge of it and what decisions do people get to make.
Absolutely.
So for somebody who is just starting out, like we reach a lot of people who are interested in dabbling in art, or they have hopes and dreams of diving into various art forms. If someone were interested in diving into photography and sought you out for advice, what's a piece of advice you'd give someone wanting to start out?
You don't have anything?
I just pick up a camera and do it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all you can do is just experiment and learn what works and what doesn't work, and don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Yeah. And I think the advice for like someone who wants to be in business doing photography is very different from someone who wants to just get good at it.
Right.
Yeah. And it would be like two separate sets. And I think, yeah, like Maggie said, my number one piece of advice, if you just wanted to pursue it, enjoy it, is just do it. I mean, I know it sounds trite, but like you get better at what you do.
And then the other half of it is being able to communicate and respond and just work professionally.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Like I think our success is, not, there's obviously quality in the images that we make, but I think so much of it is tied to, I respond to emails really fast.
right.
And like, I'm pretty on top of, um, I think that those soft skills, those like things that would make you good at running any business are much, much more important than the actual quality of the images that you're making, especially at first. But yeah, I mean, what I liked about photography when I started doing it, and it's probably different for everybody, but I remember it increased my sense of being present. That just suddenly, like my eyes were seeing more, which I know is weird, but um, as I started to look at the world through like what would make a good picture, or what would be something compelling enough to photograph, and what would be a different way of looking at this scene, I think that the more you can start of like, if you're not taking pictures, if you don't have a camera in your hand, then just be always doing it anyway. Maybe it would be a good place to start too. Is just all day kind of think, oh, how would this be photographed, and trying to solve the puzzle of lighting it, or of how would I tell the story of this very mundane thing happening right in front of me at the airport. I think those are good like mental exercises to start working your way through. And yeah, and shoot everything, and shoot like practice photographing people, practice photographing cakes and dogs and trees and everything. I mean, it's the actual process of making a picture now is relatively insanely easy compared to what it was, even 30 years ago. So why not just get out there and do it?
That's solid advice.
Absolutely. Well, now, Maggie, I really just have one final question for you, and we like to ask this question of all of our guests. So you are both independently sitting down to have lunch, and who is going to be the other person on the opposite side of that table, and they can be alive or dead. Who are you having lunch with?
Besides each other.
Yeah, besides each other.
Oh, I don't know. That's it. I've never thought of that.
I think mine would be my great aunt Shirley, who was an amazing artist and painter, and I just always had such a special relationship and fondness for her, and I think I would just love the chance to connect with her as an adult.
Yeah, I think I'm sure there's other like, I was thinking of like, oh, maybe I'm really into like furniture and design lately, so some famous I just read a book to my kid about all these famous designers, but I think like my grandfather, my mother's father, passed away when I was like 10. So I think on that same note, I did really, really enjoy. I remember him like kind of vaguely, and I think people speak very highly of him, and I remember him fondly. But still, only 10 years or so of most of which was I was barely conscious. So now, what would it be like to sit down with this person who has such an influence on my mom, who is a really important person to me, and then yeah, that's a good. I like that answer. There's others, of course, but I think that would be a good.
Those are really solid answers.
Yeah.
We've had a trend of some phenomenal answers to that question on our podcast as of late. So thank you for continuing that trend. The last thing, and I want to make sure to call this out, and I want to make sure we have this right, so that our listening audience can stay in touch with you and follow for updates, and also take a look at some of the amazing art that you have. We have nilescottstudios.com and then maggiehallphoto.com.
That's right. Yep.
Very nice. And of course, we'll include this all in our show notes for this episode. But Nile, Maggie, I want to thank you so much for being on the podcast with us. Your approach to art is so nice, and it's like, honestly, I feel like I could just keep talking to you because you're both so down to earth, and I love your perspective on art.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having us. This was really cool.
Yeah, you guys have been really authentic, and I've loved getting your insight on the work that you do.
Yeah, thanks. It's useful to step back and look at it sometimes. Why do we do it, and what does it mean? And I think it's always really valuable from our side too to just examine it a little bit. So thank you for the opportunity to do that.
Absolutely. Well, if we don't get a chance to say it now, I wish you the best of luck in your move to Brooklyn, and please send us a picture once you get settled. We'd love to see the new abode.
Yeah,
Sure.
thank you.
Absolutely. Well, as we close this episode out, we want to thank you so much for tuning in to the Modern Romantic Podcast. You can find more behind-the-scenes videos and other commentary that we have at our Patreon. Search for The Mod Rom. You can also find us on our website at themodrom.com. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a great night, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
You too. Good night.
Bye, Odin.